Welcome and good evening to the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for April 19th, 2022. I think we call this spring winter, I think is the word today. We can hardly wait till officials really get going on spring, maybe next week. Item number 1, if we could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brennan. Here. Councilmember Lehman.
Here.
Councilmember Whiting. Here. Councilmember Contreras is absent. Mayor Mars.
Here. Thank you very much. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lot in terms of making sure that we have things available in the same kind of areas and following the same type of routes, as long as it's safe, of course. But like you said, if it requires Golden Voices, kind of thumbs up.
All right. Sorry about that. All interference. Very well, we'll move forward then. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Any changes, corrections, Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, sir. I have 2. First of all, 4A1 from the consent agenda is amended to strike the second paragraph of item 12 under other business. There was no motion actually made on that particular item. And finally, 8A2 has been amended, and you have the amendments on the table in front of you, as well as they have been posted online. They include an updated resolution, R 2022 TAC 061, awarding the sale of GO bonds reflecting the winning bid, the bid tab from the bond sale, the winning bid, and then the post-sale schedules reflecting the winning bidder.
And that document is on the website now?
They're all on the website, yes, sir.
All on the website. Okay, great. Councilor Whiting?
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the edits and the modifications and the addition of the information on item 8A2.
I have a motion and a second to approve the noted agenda for the 2 items. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. The agenda has been approved. Let's move on to consent business. Any changes, corrections, Mr. Reynolds?
Nothing other than what I've already talked
Thank
about,
you.
Mr. Mayor.
Consent agenda? Consent agenda? Councilor Brennan?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as corrected in the minutes, or with the correction of the minutes.
Yeah.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? I have a motion and a second on the floor. Before we vote on the consent agenda, we would read the consent agenda into the public record. Mr. Reynolds.
Mayor, members of council, these are the consent agenda items for 19 April 2022. 4A1 approves the city council meetings for 5 April 22 as amended. 4A2 approves a temporary liquor license for the Shakopee Chamber of Commerce for the Rhythm on the Rails event held on Wednesdays 22 June through August of 2022. 4A3 approves a temporary liquor license for the Shakopee Lions Club for their annual softball tournament held between 3 and 5 June of 2022. 4A4 approves a temporary liquor license for the Shakopee American Legion Spring Car Show on 22 May 2022. 4A5 adopts ordinance number O2022 TAC 011, modifying Shakopee City Code Section 31.04, salaries of mayor and council members, increasing the annual council member salary from $7,500 to $9,000. 4A6 adopts resolution number R 2022 TAC 052, approving the use of coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds established under the American Rescue Act. 4A7 adopts resolution R 2022 TAC 062, approving a transfer of $680,000 from the general fund to the capital improvements fund. 4A8 approves the part-time, temporary, and seasonal pay plan. 4A9 authorizes the advertisement for bids for a contract to replace both existing roofs for the Public Work Building and Fire Station Number 1 and the rooftop air handlers for the Public Works Building. 4B1 adopts Resolution R 2022 Tax 063 approving a congressionally directed spending grant application for the Regional and Innovation Hub. 4B2 adopts Resolution R 2022 Tax 064 approving a congressionally directed spending grant application for the Shakopee Cultural Corridor Phase 2. 4B3 approves Resolution Number R 2022 Tax 065 increasing the pay to $100 per meeting for members of the Board of Adjustment Appeals and Planning Commission members. 4B4 approves a proposal from RSP Architects Limited for a review of the River City Center an amount not to exceed $35,000. 4C1 proclaims 29 April 22 as Arbor Day in Shakopee. 4C2 adopts Resolution R 2022 Tax 060 accepting bids and awarding a contract in the amount of $2,695,452.60 to Northern Lines Contracting for the West End Lower Bluff Utility Improvements Project. And 4C3 authorizes the execution of a professional services agreement with Bolton & Mink in the amount of $68,300 for the Minnesota Riverbank Stabilization Project.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the consent agenda as stated. It has been read into the public record. There would be no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you all very much. Let's move ahead to item number 5. Now I'd like to call on any resident citizen that would like to come forward and speak on an item not on the agenda tonight. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome on an item not on the agenda. Mr. Reynolds, have we received any electronic communication?
No, sir.
Seeing none, then, we would move ahead to item number 6, business removed from consent. There was none tonight. And then if we would move ahead then to our public hearings, I have a couple of them. 7A, the 2021 street and utility reconstruction. Councilor Lehman.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to open a public hearing.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to open a public hearing. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is now open, and Ryan will present. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the assessment public hearing, special assessment public hearing for the 2021 street and utility reconstruction project. The project, we followed local or Minnesota State Statute 429 guidelines, and it was for local streets, including Scott Street from 1st Avenue to 2nd Avenue, Fuller Street from 1st Avenue to Levy Drive, and Levy Drive from Atwood Street east to about the Holmes Bridge. Little project timeline for you. We were back here about a year ago. We received the feasibility report and held a public hearing in February of last year. City Council awarded a contract to SM Henches & Sons in April of last year, and we were able to complete the street and utility improvements and completed that project at the end of October. Last month, March 15th there, we set the public hearing date, and I stand before you tonight for that assessment public hearing. Some before and after photos for you. This was Scott Street before and after construction. If it would ever dry up and stop snowing, we could have gotten some better pictures for you, but that's where I'm at here. This is Fuller Street looking south up at County Road 69 there. We also reconstructed Levy Drive there. You can see the new sidewalk trail parking areas along Levy Drive, enhancing that area of the park in town. For project costs, we came in at $1,119,793.57. With that, we're proposing $117,549.21 in assessments. Roughly $494,000 will be funded by the CIF, approximately $29,000 to the Sanitary Sewer Fund, $147,000 to the Storm Sewer Fund, and Shakopee Utilities will be reimbursing in the tune of about $332,000. You can see a slight project savings there on this project. So the special assessments determined per our City of Shakopee assessment policy, 30% of the assessable street improvements are used to determine those street assessments. All lots on this project are proposed to be assessed on a front footage basis. And there are a few special notes here. The north half of Levy Drive is adjacent to the park and the river there, so we're not proposing to assess that. Additionally, half of Fuller Street is adjacent to the city parking lot on the west side there and would not be assessed. And then the bituminous trail along Levy Drive, as well as any oversizing. So anytime we go over 37 feet wide in the street, we subtract that out from the assessment costs. And then we had one special single-family residential property located at 336 First Avenue West here, and we're proposing to assess them a 60-foot lot equivalent, which is similar to all the other lots in this downtown Shakopee area. We also, at the last minute there, was added a alley improvement, and similarly, 30% of the alley the alley improvements are proposed to be assessed. Again, all the lots are proposed to be assessed on a front footage basis. And then again, that city parking lot, about half of the alley there is adjacent to that city parking lot, so that will not be assessed and will be picked up by the Capital Improvement Fund. On the screen there is a map showing the assessment map of the project area. The kind of red outlined area, big shaded gray, is part of the River Bluffs private development. The EDA had entered into a developer's agreement that was not included in this, but noteworthy of noting there. All the pink properties shown on this are proposed to be assessed on that front footage basis. And then you'll see, I think there's about 3 properties that have like a blue crosshatch over them. Those are the getting assessed for the alley on Levy between Atwood, Fuller, First, and Levy there. And what does that look like? From the feasibility report, we had an actual, or estimated $103.32 per foot. With the savings on the project, that works out to be $85, some fancy rounding there. And then the alley assessment originally was proposed around $12 per foot, and we came in final actual cost of $10.78 per foot. Show a little amortization schedule here. So that residential property is kind of shown on the left there. They have an assessment of $5,114.10. We're proposing an interest rate of 4.25, which covers the city's bonding rate plus a 2% administrative fee, which is part of our assessment policy. And this is based on a 10-year assessment. You can see annual payments ranging from $765 down to about $533. If somebody didn't pay, if they paid it over the course of 10 years, they'd end up paying about $1,200 in interest there. And then on the right-hand side, there's an alley, similarly scheduled for that one. The assessments for those 2 residential properties on the alley were about $647. Same interest, same payoff period. You see your payments ranging from $97 down to about $67 and about $155 total if they paid it over the 10 years. So for residents, the payment options, they can pay in full or a partial amount, minimum $100, with absolutely no interest by November 1st of 2022, this fall, at which time we would then certify the assessments and they go on the next year's taxes. And they can make that payment directly to the finance department here at Shakopee City Hall. Assuming adoption of the assessments here, notice will go out to residents with all the payment instructions, all their rights and responsibilities, and that'll get mailed out here shortly. Assessments certified to the county property, property taxes, and they're paid over a period of 10 years. They are subject to that interest rate of 4.25%, and that starts on November 1st, 2022. And then any resident can pay off any remaining special assessment at any time during that 10-year period if they choose to come into the City of Shakopee Finance Department. And with that, our recommendation to you is to adopt Resolution R 2022, TAC 034, a resolution adopting assessments for the 2021 Street and Utility Reconstruction Project. And a special note there at the bottom, if any property owners wish to preserve their right to appeal their assessment, they must file a written objection prior to the closing of this public hearing. Staff has not received any objections to this at this point. And with that, I stand for any questions you may have.
Ryan, thank you very much for your presentation. Questions of staff? Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, I got a couple questions. Can you pull a map up again?
Sure.
Were the residential properties in blue assessed for the frontage on Atwood?
These two properties with the blue crosshatch you're saying off of Atwood there, they are not being assessed with this project for street improvements. They're being assessed for the alley improvements between Atwood, Levy, Fuller, and First Avenue. And as those Atwood Street, Scott Street, and Levy Drive portions are reconstructed with the River Bluff projects, what's being proposed there is that the developer, adjacent developer is paying, so on that 30%, if you would, reconstruction, 15% of that is being picked up by the EDA, and 15% of that is being picked up by the developer on that project.
Okay, and then the second question, under the final project cost, I see that the engineering, admin, and legal went up 35,000 when it was originally 70, so it went up to 104. What was the basis for a third increase?
So I think I would just estimate that we probably underestimated our needs on this project when we reported it back to you at feasibility. It's consistent. I mean, we're at less than 10% here for engineering, admin, and legal costs. I would say a more complicated project would be upwards of 20%. Historically, we've been in that 10 to 12%, so it's pretty much right on where we're at. I think we just really realistically probably underestimated that in that last report to you.
Okay.
Mayor and council members, if I could add, there was a more complex design with the trail along the river and making sure that fit into the riverbank. So we did have some extra tasks, if you will, during the design stages. And then we had extra coordination, breaking the project apart with the Shakopee Flats, the River Bluff development. So there were some extra efforts that we typically don't see on our more simple projects. So that did lead to some of those extra costs.
All right.
If I may, to add to Mr. Lillehog's point as well, there was a lot of coordination with the Union Pacific Railroad to get a casing and jacking underneath the railroad, and that took a lot of extra time and effort too.
I've worked with the railroad. Trust me, I know what you're saying.
Some legal time in there too.
And just for the record, the contingency is substantially under what you estimated too, so. All right, just want a clarification on that.
And so, my questions are on a $1.1 million project, the overall assessments are around 10%.
Mayor and council, that's what it works out to
Right.
roughly on this project, yes.
Okay. And then, I just make a note that, I think that when we started this project, there was concern about some trees on Scott Street that got saved. And I've driven these roads now, and, they are, very nice, and I hope they stand the test of time, because some of them are in kind of rough shape. Counselor Whiting?
Yeah, if you could put it back to the Bluff Street, and the picture doesn't really do justice there. If you really look, but you can see the cracking and the potholes and things. And now, with the talk about the illusion of a parking issue downtown, we've added some extra parking, and it's along the river, so people can use it as recreation. So I think this is, you did a great job on the project, and you kept it under budget, so thank you.
More questions of staff? More questions of staff? If not, Ryan, thank you very much. Maybe if you could just leave the map up. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. If anybody would like to come forward and make comment in regard to this public hearing for street assessments, reconstruction. This is a public hearing. And of course, if anybody wanted to contest the assessment, they would need a in writing by the close of this public hearing tonight.
One more call? One more call, or?
I don't see anybody stepping forward.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Lehman to close the public hearing. Further discussion? 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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the public hearing is now closed. Counselors? Counselor Brennan?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number R 2022-034, approving assessments for the 2021 street and utility reconstruction project CIF 20-007.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion, I guess, again, my comments about the roads, and it'd be great when Shakopee Flats opens this summer and get the rest of Levy Drive and the other two side streets finished around that area. So, nice improvement to the community. Further discussion? 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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Let's move ahead then to 7B, a vacation of a public drainage and utility easement for Summerland Place First Edition. Michael Wilper, Counselor Lehman.
Mayor, is this public hearing also?
Yes,
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing.
thank you. I have a motion and a second by Counselor Brennan. Further discussion? 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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The public hearing is now open, and Michael will present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is a vacation of a public drainage and utility easements in Summerlin Place. This is the area in question. So when this was originally preliminary platted, there were drainage and utility easements placed over these out parcels. So what we're doing tonight is basically eliminating them so that they can move forward with a plat to plat out these two parcels for single-family homes. And for, I believe there may be some townhouses.
That's it?
That's it, sir. Simple.
Are these the outlots?
Mayor and Council, that's correct. These had blanket easements over the top of them. They'll now come back and do a final plat, and those two outlots will become parts of the subdivision.
Parts of the subdivision, they won't be standalone plats. I mean, I'm looking at the border going, there's easements around that. Those easements would stay, would they not?
So Mayor and Council, when they come through with their final plat, you can see the ghost subdivision for the existing first phase. When they come through with their second phase, there'll be the necessary easements on these two parcels. Right now, they basically have blanket easements on them.
All right. Other questions of staff, Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, I'm with you. Let's see if we can clarify this. So
Right.
the line that we're looking at is not an easement on the edge of these parcels. It's a blanket even over the whole parcel.
Mayor and Council, that's correct.
Okay? So as they come forward with the detailed development plan, then easements probably along some of the edges and along the so on and so forth, utilities and stuff will be granted as part of the development.
Mayor and Council, as part of the Summerlin Place Second Edition, you will see, it doesn't show up because it's so light, but there are easements for all the utilities in each lot, similar to occurred in the first phase.
So, thanks for that. I appreciate that. When I was looking at the red line, I'm going, those are border, and the blanket covers the whole lot. Okay, I get it. Thank you very much. Other questions of staff? Other questions of staff? If not, thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Would anybody like to come forward and make comment in regard to this vacation? Please come forward, state your name and address to the record. Seeing none, Counselor Whiting.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
A second.
I have a motion to close the public hearing and a second by Counselor Brennan. Further discussion? 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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Public hearing is now closed. Counselor Whiting.
Make a motion to adopt resolution R 2022-058 for the vacation of a public and drainage and utility easements as dedicated within outlots A and B of the Summerlin Place First Edition.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Lehman. Further discussion? Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you. Let's move ahead then to 7C, a vacation of a public drainage utility easement on Power Second Edition. Counselor Whiting.
Make a motion to open a public hearing.
Counselor Lehman.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Public hearing's now open. Michael, welcome back.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So as you said, this is the vacation of public drainage and utilities, and it's in the Power Second Edition. This is the parcel in question. If you'll remember, originally there was a plan on this particular site to do a medical office building. You'll see later in the agenda tonight is a PUD amendment for an apartment building. Because of that, the developer needs to basically vacate this existing and remove the sewer that was put in for that project. So we'll be removing that crosshatched easement.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Counselor Lehman?
I know we discussed it quite a bit about this road. What's the status on the road layout? I can't read what the name of that road is.
Lusitano. So Mayor and Council, Lusitano has been built. We'll be tearing up a section of it basically from the bottom here and going around to extend the sewer to the outfall that's kind of along 169.
The issue was the connection with the school. So now we're going to have a more intense use going back and forth, and you're going to have the students crossing at the school crossing. How are we fixing that, or did we fix that?
Mayor and Council, I don't think we ever plan on fixing it. I mean, I think we've talked about doing roundabouts in this area. The county is going to install a signal at the intersection of Marystown and 17th. This residential use is actually less intensive than a medical office building. It does not generate as many trips.
Are we going to have, Mayor, if I may?
Yes, go ahead.
I know my pointer doesn't work on your screen, but where the school crosses this road,
Let me get this to show up.
right there, yep.
Yep.
What safeguards are going to be put in that location as students are crossing the street right there when people are coming and going?
Mayor and council members, generally, Lusitano and the traffic study that was done, nothing really changes with this development. Mr. Kursky indicated that part of our strategy was to put a roundabout at the County Road 1615 intersection, and that would provide a U-turn condition where they would be able to stay on the county road and go up to Lusitano. So that was part of our strategy to divert, if you will, some of the traffic from going in front of the school. So now, as Mr. Kursky indicated, the county's putting a traffic signal there. So a little tougher to do a U-turn, but still possible, obviously. But that might have an effect where a little more traffic will be going on to Lusitano that we didn't want there. But to answer the question as far as there's a mid-block crosswalk that exists there. We do plan on maintaining that, keeping it there. There are students, so two factors. There is the daycare right on the south side of the street there, and there are students that go from the school directly to the daycare after school program. And then if you follow the path from the school sidewalk, use the crosswalk, and then along the south and west sides of Lusitano, the rapid flashing beacon push button signal across the county road is on the west side. So that is the better spot with the layout of where that crosswalk should be at this point. We're not fans of mid-block crosswalks, but in this instant, this is where we had designed and planned to have that crosswalk is where it's shown.
And Mayor and Council, we did get a right-in, right-out at Lusitano and Marystown.
Yeah, I think I've driven this road many times, and I think the right in, right out, the pending improvements to Marystown and 17th. Now, a couple years later, we have the crosswalk on 17th that's installed at all our schools along 17th. And I've read the report on the apartment building, and the intensity of what I call ADTs, average daily trips, is less than it would have been under a proposed medical building. And I think the road generally flows pretty well. Other questions of staff? Other questions of staff? If not, thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is anybody in the audience want to come forward and make comment on this vacation? This is a public hearing. If you'd want to come forward and make comment on this vacation. Seeing none, Councilor Brennan?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
A motion to close the public hearing and a second from Councilor Whiting. Further discussion? 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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. And now we're back to the issue of the vacation in the middle of this outlot. Councilor Brennan?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number R 2022-059 for the vacation of certain public drainage and utility easements as dedicated within Lot 1, Block 2, Powers, 2nd edition.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for this approval of this vacation. Further discussion? 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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much. Let's move ahead then to Councilor Lane.
Mayor, just a comment, maybe as this progresses forward in this area, if we could have staff and the school district work together, if there's an issue with that crossing there, maybe some flashing signage that says children crossing or something. Maybe the school puts crossing guards there, I don't know, but it's just something to keep an eye on.
All right, thank you. Let's move ahead then to 8A1, our monthly financial review, and Nate will present. Nate?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight I'll be covering our monthly financial review through March. Just a quick update on 2021. We're continuing to work through the 2021 numbers. We're actually having our audit being completed this week. So we hope to have a final report on that auditor's presentation sometime in June. This slide shows the general fund through March, so approximately 25% of the way through the year. Early in the year, any large transaction or two or of payments or receipts received could skew the numbers, so keep that in mind. Beginning with revenues, property taxes and special assessments, they'll be received in June with their first half tax settlement. We're continuing to see a lot of building activity. Building permit revenue is tracking ahead of budget targets and slightly ahead of where we were last year through March. And then on the expenditure side, we're within the budget target in total, and would consider each department budget reasonably in line with expectations through this point of the year. Here's the recreational facility operations budget to actual. Similar to the general fund, expenditures or revenues could be skewed this early in the year depending on what type of transactions did or did not occur. Revenues are slightly down from last year for the ice arena, where revenues are up in comparison to last year for the community center. This is our quarterly, the end of the quarter, so within the council packet is the first quarter investment report. This slide shows the investment earnings for the first quarter in comparison to the prior 4 years, the blue line being 2022. We're at about $174,000 in investment earnings for the first quarter, which is up slightly from last year, but below the previous 3 years. I think you'll see this line trend upwards as we go through 2022 and 2023. Have we seen rates increase over the last 6 months, last year? And then lastly, the blue line on this slide shows the market value adjustment for investments for the year, again, with the upwards shift in interest rates. We're seeing a pretty substantial market value adjustment. The adjustment, again, is just on paper, as we do intend to hold all investments through maturity, but currently looking at a market value adjustment for the year of about $2.2 million. And from what I've seen and heard, interest rates could continue to head up further as we go. So it could even be, bigger by the end of the year. With that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Questions of staff? First quarter? Looks pretty good with rates there. We're gonna just try to stay short and then build a ladder upwards if rates continue to move up.
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. There's always a little bit of a lag before you have your portfolio turned over to the higher rates, so.
Other questions of staff? Other questions of staff? If not, Nate, thank you very much for your update. Let's move ahead then to 8A2, Sale of General Obligation Bonds, Series 2022A. And Nate, welcome back.
Sure. So, good evening, Mayor and council members again. March 15th, the City Council set today as the sale for GO bonds. Those bids were received by Baker Tilly this morning, and I'll have Paul Steinman and his staff from Baker Tilly present those results.
Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening.
Just move the mic over. Thanks.
How's that?
Perfect.
Good evening. I'm here today with my colleagues Steve Scharf and Tom Denaway, part of your team on this project. This morning at 10:30 a.m. we took bids on your bonds. You offered $10 million of general obligation tax increment and improvement bonds. You had 4 bidders, and your best bid was from Northland Securities, which bid a true interest cost of 2.95%. The cover bid, or the next best bid, was 0.06 of a percentage point higher at 3.01. But your winning bid is Northland Securities at 2.95. I'll just make a couple quick comments about your rating report, which is always something that we engage every time we go out for bonds. Your staff did fantastic. I would say we, brought the heat to S&P to try to convince them of your worthiness of an upgrade. And sometimes we say that the fast elevator only goes one way on ratings, and that's down. It's very slow going up. So they did reaffirm your AA+ rating, which is admirable. And they made a couple of really good comments, and you can read them in the rating report as well. But I would just bring your attention to a couple. One is that they did improve your rating in the financial management practices and policies area from good to strong, in part because of the work that Mr. Reinhardt's doing here tonight, presenting financial information to you folks. So that was a positive. And the outlook is stable, meaning there's no intention by S&P to change the rating over the next 2-year period. When we had a conversation with the analyst after they presented your information to credit committee, we get a little more color than they print in this report. And she implied for certain that there was a feeling the upside scenario was going to be easier to achieve than the downside scenario, whatever that means. It means that they look to your ability to increase your rating versus reduce your rating over time. So the sentence that she writes under upside scenario here, assuming no deterioration in other credit factors, we could raise the rating if income and market value per capita were to improve to levels commensurate with those of AAA rated communities. So that's what we're always after, and every year, as you know, AAA-rated communities, the median improves each year, so we're chasing something each year, and we have to improve better than the average, so to speak. So, but a great rating at AA+, and I think that's represented very well in the bids that you received this morning. So I'll stand for questions. Otherwise, my recommendation, and it's in the resolution before you, is to award to Northland Securities.
Thanks, Paul, for your comments. And questions? I guess, I'm very thankful for the effort to go through S&P's rating, system and AA+. I know staff, you really go all out. I did read the detailed report, and it seems like we get stronger, and we're just a smidgen away from that. And if we can get that income up as well. It's a great exercise, though, and I applaud staff. I don't, just it shows the integrity of our community, so, and our city. My second question is on the amount of bidders. There's 4. Any comment on that? There wasn't 5, there wasn't 10. These are couple of them are some big bond houses here, especially Northland and Baird. And any comment on that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we did have 7, I think, signed on and then 4 showed up. That isn't uncommon. I think 4 is obviously a decent number of bidders. There were other bonds in the market. We sold other bonds in the market. Other MA firms had bonds in the market as well, but 4 is certainly a satisfactory.
I know it's not the biggest issue or the smallest issue, but Northland's a big player here, at least in the local Minnesota area, so great to see them out in front. So, other questions of our Baker Tilly consultant? Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, I've got to think that with all that's going on in the world, that the rating agencies are a little skittish on being quick to raise people's ratings with all the unknowns in the world right now. That's just my personal thought.
Well, the report read very well, and maybe there's some merit to that as well, but actually I think the proof is in the pudding and the issue itself. Pretty good rate, even though it's inched up a little bit here over the last couple weeks. Rates will go higher, and to get money under 3%, really, if you look back for 20 years, you'd say, wow, right? Or even longer, so. Other comments? If not, thank you.
Thank you very much. Glad to be of service.
Yeah. Councilor Whiting.
I just want to remind folks what the proceeds from the bond sale, and we talked about it a few times here, but it's 2 different purposes. It's $5.91 million to be used for the improvements as identified, the developer's agreement for Canterbury's TIF district, and $4.09 be used for providing the city's capital improvement fund to be paid back by special assessments, property taxes. The other would be paid back through the TIF. Correct? Is that a good statement, you think, Nate?
Yeah, that's accurate. So as you mentioned, split two ways. 5.9 million would be used in the Canterbury tax increment district. We paid entirely through tax increment revenues, and the other 4.1 is an improvement bond, so it'll go into our capital improvement fund to fund the projects that we have listed in the capital improvement.
Talked about that little bubble or dip in our capital improvement fund that we got to bolster for future projects. So that's been talked about a lot of times, so if folks are interested in knowing what that's about. But with that, I would make a motion to adopt resolution number 2022-061, a resolution awarding the sale of general obligation bonds series 2022A in the original aggregate principal amount of $10 million, fixing their form and specifications, directing their execution and delivery, providing for their payment, and authorizing the execution of documents in connection therewith.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second by Councilor Brennan. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's move ahead then to 8B1, a donation of a Shakopee hockey history.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. To start out first, since we are talking about hockey and ice, I did want to address this. There is not a glide path as we're receiving revenues at the ice arena. And so it closed yesterday. We got a check for $78,000 yesterday. So I just wanted to, when you're looking at it, don't be concerned. Our revenues are doing great. it just isn't a glide path in terms of when those checks come in. So that gap closed, and we're actually profitable as of today's check. So this evening, we're pretty excited. When I first came into this role, I was looking for historical context for hockey in the community. I'd reached out to a lot of different stakeholders trying to get photos and other items, and I candidly wasn't successful. And so I just stopped moving in that direction. Since that time, we've established a great partnership with First Avenue Framing. If you've been to the community center in the hallway going to our room, we have all of the Shakopee photo winners framed in partnership with First Avenue Framing. So those great photos look fantastic in the wall. And in that partnership, John reached out to me a few weeks ago, and he said, hey, there's a couple interesting things that I have you might be interested in. Come and take a look at them. And I'm really excited. I'd like to invite Mr. John Shores to come up and talk about them for a second. So I wasn't successful before in getting some hockey history, but then John reached out to me. If you want to go to that microphone, sir. He had some that he wants to share with the community, and it's significant for the community. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Jay. John, welcome.
Happy to be here, Mayor and Council. 1972, that was 50 years ago.
Just the other day.
I approached Jay. I came across some, well, I was rudely reminded that I'm old. Class of 72 will acknowledge its 50th class reunion this August. And I'm going, well, I was a member of that class. What else happened that year? What else happened that year? Oh, yeah. It was first year for Shakopee hockey. Shakopee High School hockey program is 50 years old. I couldn't let that pass unacknowledged. I had memorabilia that I came across 5 years ago. Team photos from our photo day. And so this is something I've been thinking about for that period of time. I just decided it's time to get something in the arena that commemorates the program, that might be the start of acknowledging the hockey legacy. If you travel around to other arenas, other communities, in their ice arenas, you see memorabilia, tokens, whatever, on the walls. You go to Braemar, you go to Richfield Ice Center, anywhere up on the Iron Range, and they'll commemorate their hockey programs. Well, this is in a small way, something that maybe would kickstart that, and I'm pleased to make a donation, and we'll see what happens. Jay's got, this collage of photographs. We had a photo day out on the ice. This is up by the old high school, West Junior High. And our ice rink is where the tennis courts are now. There was a warming house, an open rink, and then a hockey rink there. And 95% of our ice time was outdoors. We had our photo day on a nice day, and the city actually came and blew the ice off, so we didn't have to shovel even beforehand. So that commemorates those Shakopee High School pioneers, I think. Many of them who are still in the area. 2 or 3 of them are no longer with us, but, you know, attrition will get us all. But so I had these reproduced, cleaned up, and I contacted Jay and says, let's get this stuff up there. The jersey box, in my efforts to pull some things together, I talked to some ex-alums. What kind of stuff do you have? I sure would like to get my hands on that era jersey, they don't exist anymore. The hockey program budget was minimal, and those were hand-me-downs from the youth program. This jersey, it's circa 1974, donated by Dave Isaacson. The Isaacsons were a hockey name. Chet Isaacson owned business, a sporting goods store down on First Avenue next to Arnie's Bar. That thing has been, that space has been a lot of different businesses. But the Isaacsons were part of that hockey support group, dads. Chet Isaacson was one of them, and his three sons all played hockey, and David had his jersey. And so that's the earliest jersey I was able to come across. So we have this opportunity to commemorate 50 years of hockey in this town. Since then, I've been made aware of other items that might come forward, and be willing to work with Jay and our friend here, I forget his name. Troy, to maybe expand this and get things going. If the word gets out, more of this stuff might present itself, and let's utilize it.
Well, this is fabulous, and history is great, and from the beginning, and John, we very much appreciate and value the donation here, and maybe this will start something of even more, so, pretty cool. Other comments, Counselor Whiting?
Thanks, John. Just, and
Oh.
can I say, that must be old-time hockey, right, Coach? That's old, sorry.
We didn't wear the foil in those days.
Okay.
No, that came a little later.
That's when you had the newspaper strapped on, they were called shin pads.
Yeah,
back
shinny, right.
then. Yeah. Counselor Brennan?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the donation and sharing that history with the community. And I can't wait to see what else comes up, and I appreciate everything that you do in the community. You're always there, you're always giving, and you're always available for anything. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're entirely welcome.
Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, my era was a little bit later than yours, not dating you or anything, but the memories of hockey in Huber Park, over the boards, and you had to run out in a snowbank to find a puck.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And the little ice road from the hockey rink over to the regular skating rink by the warming house, and there was always the embedded rocks in that little road that you'd be skating along, and you'd hit the rock and take a header and go inside the warming house and get a candy bar and make it all better, you know. The good old days, it was a lot of fun. It was different.
I ran that warming house. When did you frequent it?
Well, me and a buddy did a 12-pack on a roof in a flood one time, so.
We had kids put the hockey stick between their legs and come down the sliding hill in their skates. And they were having a great time. But one of them broke a leg, and we had to put an end to it.
Well, they had the baseball fields at the bottom of the hill behind the old gas station, Clark Station. And it was a great spot up behind the Clark Station to sit and watch the games, and it was always the VFW and the Legion or somebody going at it on the ice rink. Sometimes it was broom ball tournaments, and society was different back then. The keg of beer was there for everybody to utilize. And then the high school would come down Spencer and use the facilities down there too, so it was pretty cool, pretty good times, so.
Yeah, I would say 90% of our ice time was outside.
Yeah.
And if you got indoor ice, that was a luxury.
Right.
Well, anyway, this is a labor of love. I hope we can get some more going there and decorate the building, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we get a picture of this stuff? Should probably get a picture of it, huh?
I don't know, they don't.
Can we get John and staff and pictures going with that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
John, would you like to take a picture with that?
Certainly.
With the council?
Thank you. Counselor Whiting?
Oh, we're still back there. I'd like to make a motion to accept a donation of historical Shakopee hockey items for display at the Shakopee Ice Arena.
I'll second.
I have a motion to accept this kind generation from John Shores. And a second. Further discussion? 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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, donation is accepted. Thank you. Let's move ahead then to 8C1 is a presentation from Bird Scooters. And Michael is going to present.
Mayor and Council, Michael is here from Bird Scooters, who will talk about what they're about and what they're proposing for Shakopee potentially.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city staff. Thank you very much for having me. I do have a short presentation here I'd love to share if it would be possible to enable screen sharing for me. Looks like I'm unable to do so while the Shakopee slide is up.
We're trying here, hang on.
We're working on it.
Totally fine. I'm on your schedule. Perfect. Thank you very much.
There you go. Storm wasn't there.
Is everyone able to see my screen?
We are
You
now.
can see your screen, except for now you have a desktop app in front of your slideshow.
Desktop app. In front of
That's
my
something on our side.
Okay.
Perfect. All right.
How do we get rid of it?
Oh, hold on, hold on, we're working on something here. Good.
Take your time.
I don't know why that's.
What about just touching the screen, clicking the screen? Was the presentation provided separately at all?
Mayor and Council, it should have been in your packet.
I believe there is a slightly different version of the presentation that was sent by my colleague Garrett Gronowski, who's been working with the city. I apologize that he's unavailable today. He was undergoing LASIK eye surgery and unfortunately doesn't have the vision to be able to present this evening.
Is there any way we can just drag that over to the side?
It's not like I have, doesn't, I'm not really sure.
Thank you for your patience, Michael.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
It's hers. We just let them talk, they have the presentation.
It says click share screen. Who has to do that? Us or him?
Browser, but I'm trying to find that button, and that's the problem.
He's using one of our packets.
Sorry, I can't.
You know, we do have a copy of your slideshow in our packet.
Perfect. I'm more than happy to deliver things a little bit more informally. I don't want to slow the pace of this evening's meeting for you. In that case, I'm more than happy just to speak to things a little bit more briefly. So I am with the Revenue and Partnerships team over at Bird. We are a shared electric vehicle company specializing in what they call micromobility. So that's those vehicle types that are best suited to trips that are less than 5 miles. So that's about 60% of the trips that are within the United States. And in Shakopee itself, I would estimate probably somewhere closer around 75 to 80%, just given the predictable commuting patterns that we would anticipate. Objective here is to make cities a little bit more livable, improve the quality of life by providing affordable, accessible alternative transportation that helps reduce traffic congestion and improves air quality by being an electric vehicle. We were first founded in 2017. We're actually now present in over 400 cities globally, well over 200 within the United States, as well as about a dozen roughly within Minnesota. The way that our system works is very similar to some of the bike share systems you might already be familiar with. Individuals will download a mobile application on their smartphone. They will create an account where they undergo a safety tutorial where they're taught safe riding behavior as well as proper parking etiquette. They will then be able to see all of our devices, either using the map functionality on the mobile application or just throughout the community itself. They scan it to unlock, take it where they need to go, usually somewhere around 10 minutes away before hitting a button to end their ride. At the end of their ride, they are required to take a photograph of the scooter to prove that they have parked it appropriately. We possess some pretty sophisticated technology, including a real-time AI feature that can detect whether a scooter's in frame. So if somebody tries to pull a fast one, snap a photo of their feet, the system will actually kick them back. They'll continue to incur a charge on their credit card until they actually snap a photo of the scooter itself. Somebody else will come along, do the exact same thing. All of our scooters are speed capped at 15 miles per hour, which is in keeping with state legislature. They are also all equipped with a bell to provide an audible signal similar to a bicycle, a headlamp, running lights, tail lights, and brake lights, as well as a safety sticker. You're seeing an example within the slides that were provided by my colleague Garrett earlier that includes some reminders around safe riding behavior, as well as 24/7 contact information in the form of a telephone number and email address. If you can see the screen, there is an example up there as well. I do want to be very clear, we are not seeking any investment or any subsidy from the city or any other entity within Shakopee. This is something where we cover all the upfront costs simply because we feel that given our analysis, this can be a location where we can be profitable long-term, which speaks to the long-term sustainability of our fleet, not something that comes and goes and is doesn't have the opportunity to establish some roots within the community. There is a very strong collaborative environment that we do create with the city. My colleague Garrett has been speaking with Jen and as well as some other city staff pretty extensively. There is an ongoing relationship that we maintain through one of our dedicated account managers to make any of the fine-tuning adjustment to the delivery of our services after a launch. This includes creating special geofencing parameters. Those are the digital boundaries that control where the scooters can and cannot go through the onboard GPS system for special events, or even preferred or incentivized or designated parking areas for those types of events as well. What we have found to be particularly effective is to actually partner with local members of the community to spearhead the day-to-day field operations, meaning the deployment, the rebalancing, which is just a fancy word for moving the scooters from places where people have ended their ride, and the recharging of the scooters, as they are all electric vehicles. What this means is that we can create some small business opportunities immediately within the community that have no upfront cost, no fixed cost, and no termination penalty, and give the city the confidence of knowing that there are locally based individuals whose full-time responsibility is to go out and check on these scooters multiple times per day. Because we operate on a revenue share basis with these individuals, it also means that the majority of the net revenue actually generated on the rides stays within the Shakopee community. How this impacts the community is very significantly positive. Almost 60% of our trips do end in front of a small business. Our fleet managers, the individuals I was referring to earlier in my presentation, on average take home a little over $70,000 a year. In an area like Shakopee, where there is no other shared mobility service, I do think there is the potential for that to be even higher based off of some of the figures we've seen within Minnesota. Finally, Emory University released a study last year where they found that over a 6-month period, every single individual e-scooter contributed roughly $1,100 in additional spending at local businesses, particularly within the food and beverage industry, that otherwise would not have been spent. Just to keep my math nice and easy, what that means for Shakopee is if you have 100 scooters, or call it 100 scooters, sure, over the course of an entire year, that's close to $250,000 in spending that otherwise would not have occurred at local businesses. Because we were the first company in the world to introduce shared electric scooters, it has given us an opportunity to hone our technology a little bit more so than some of the others. We have extremely sophisticated geofencing and geo-speed controls. Again, those are the digital boundaries that control where the scooters can go and at what speed they can travel at within particular regions. We also released the industry-first helmet selfie feature as a way to incentivize safe riding behavior. If a rider snaps a photo of themselves wearing a helmet at the end of their ride, they receive a credit to their next ride. We do this in combination with an ongoing helmet campaign throughout the entirety of the United States, where someone can request right through our company website or right through our mobile application to have a helmet shipped directly to their door for $9.95 shipping and handling and no other fees. It's black, it's got a little bird logo on it, looks pretty cool. I know I'm a bit biased, but I think they look quite elegant. I've mentioned our parking management capabilities to create incentivized, encouraged, or even designated parking areas, depending on circumstances. This will require individuals to go to a particular location to end their ride if there is a special event, such as a street festival, a parade, something along those lines. Warm-up mode is available on some of our makes and models of scooters. It is for new riders. It reduces the maximum speed down from 15 miles per hour to about 6 miles per hour until they gain a little bit more confidence and a bit more familiarity with the system, at which point it gradually increases up to that maximum of 15, as well as increases the rate of acceleration. Quick Start, excuse me. Quick Start was developed because we identified that a large number of our users are regular commuters, using this as their day-to-day vehicle to get to and from work, school, etc. This allows, based off of their historic riding behavior, for them to skip that traditional unlock flow and have the scooter simply unlock when they approach it. They are still required to photograph the scooter at the end of their ride to prove that they have parked it appropriately, but it gives them a little bit more of a smoother experience given their regular utilization. We will actually be providing the city with real-time data dashboards that include the number of regular commuters, the heat mapping for the travel of the users, the total number of trips, and a whole bunch of other data that can be very useful to help inform how the system is performing within Shakopee. This will also give a real-time picture of where every single scooter is within the community so that the city can independently make a judgment call on as to how they feel things are going. I hope I've kept the presentation here brief enough, and I'd be more than happy to ensure that I answer any of the questions that Mr. Mayor or council members you may have, or city staff for that matter.
Well, thank you, Michael, for your presentation and questions of the Bird Scooter Company. Councilor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple of questions, actually. How is age verification done on this system?
Excellent question. We do require our users to be 18 plus. That is part of our terms and conditions. This is done through a credit card verification. We also have the capacity to do an ID verification. State law does require does not require individuals to be 18, but we do. Because ID verification can discriminate against some underserved populations who may not have access to a driver's license for whatever reason, we typically do it on a campaign basis, meaning 2 weeks at a time, simply to weed out those bad apples that might want to skirt the rules while still giving an opportunity to individuals who might not have an alternative transportation option available to them.
Can I continue?
Are we saying they have to have a driver's license?
They do not have to have a driver's license unless we turn on the ID verification.
Okay, thank you. More? Councilor Lehman?
Well, I'm confused because at first you have to be 18 or above, but he's saying unless they turn it on. So
that is one of the features that we have available to us to help control ID verification. Another is through our credit card verification, through our general terms and conditions, similar to how an environment might require somebody to be 18 years or older to enter it, such as a hospitality location.
And impaired driving, how is that handled?
Excellent question. We released a feature that we call Safe Start. We typically turn it on at 9 p.m., but this is adjustable. It does require all of our users to pass a brief cognitive test before the scooter will unlock to act as an additional barrier in the event that somebody's had a few too many. If there is a significant concern with impaired driving, we can also digitally shut down the fleet between certain hours where it is at most risk, such as midnight to 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. when some of the bars close. In general, because a large number of our users are shift workers, we would advocate for a 24-hour service and make those adjustments later on if we've identified this as being a particular concern.
Well, maybe that question is for the chief of police. Do you get a DWI on something like this?
Chief, you just want to come and then Thank you. And we'll have more questions for you, Michael.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Counselor Lehman, what was your?
My question is impaired driving enforced on scooters?
Yes, we've motorized ones, yes.
Well, these are electric.
Got a motor.
Okay.
I believe I can actually provide some clarity here. They are not considered motor vehicles under state law, but they do have parity with bicycles. If you can get a DWI or a DUI while riding a bicycle, which under Minnesota state law I believe is the case, you should be able to get a DUI on one of these as well.
Okay, and the next question, Mayor, is where do these ride? If their max speed is 15, if they're on the street, they're impeding traffic. If they're on a sidewalk, then...
Yeah, I got this question too.
So I'm kind of confused on where exactly do they ride?
I believe I can provide some clarity here as well. Again, parity with bicycles is about 99% of what state law boils down to. So treat them as you would a bicycle. Keep them on the multi-use paths. Keep them to the right side of the lane in bike lanes where available. Don't ride on sidewalks unless there is, or if there is a prohibition against them.
Okay. And that seems like, if I understood you correct, you're saying this is a private for-profit business.
We are a for-profit business, yes.
Okay. So my thinking, I don't know why the city would be involved in this other than licensing the business to operate if we choose to go that route.
We would have a...
Mayor and Council, I think the city attorney, we would have to enter into a memorandum of understanding. His suggestion is that if you are interested in this concept, we would do a one-year MOU and then see how it goes, and it could be terminated. So it's similar to a licensing, but it's a memorandum of understanding. When we met with his associate, I mean, some of the concerns are, where do these end up? How is their policing? Because when these first came out years ago, they were left all over the place. They actually have developed a pretty good system that if you leave your cycle where it shouldn't be, they have crews that pick them up because they all have locational services on them. We actually discussed what if they end up in the river, you know, are there ways? And they basically are prepared for all of those things and give them basically a year to see how it goes before we do a more formal agreement.
Mayor, it seems to me that we would have to decide where they would be appropriately used, like we did with golf carts, for instance. We don't allow golf carts on emergency corridors, and
Mr. Rao?
169 you can't ride a bike on. So
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Chief Tate and I actually talked about this week, and our thought process was that if you were to go forward with this, we would actually bring the golf cart matter back. I think it's been some time since that's been looked at, and it would probably have to be something in conjunction together.
All right. Councilor Brennan?
I can see a number of areas where this could really benefit from certain areas of our community where people need to go to the grocery store or to the transit center, or we have some really large venues that happen during the summer and people want to go to that venue, to the hotel or whatever. But what happens if you are driving in areas that the business doesn't want the birds left or in their property? You talked about the geofencing, so is that going to benefit that rider if there is a geofence?
Excellent question. Absolutely. In general, most businesses do welcome having our services present as they bring additional individuals to those locations to help spend some money. All the research thus far has shown that locations accessible by alternative transportation, like electric scooters, see increased revenue. So it's a good thing for the local economy. It's a good thing for local businesses. If there's a venue site or a local business that is experiencing some particular challenges for whatever reason, we can use our geofencing technology to block it off. All we do is basically draw a digital boundary and have individuals go to a separate location to end their ride. Usually it doesn't have to be particularly big, so even if somebody has to walk a few dozen feet afterwards. Certainly not a horribly negative experience.
I know that in conversations regarding our transit centers, and there was a lot of conversation around the last mile where people would take the bus and find another mode of transportation to get to the place that they need to go to. So I think that that's something that would fit into this model that you have. So if there was a large event in our community, and I don't know if you have like a number of birds that are in the community, but you know, if you were aware of a large event that was happening in the community, would you be able to bring in more, or are you just limited to the number of the number that's in the community?
Excellent question. We can absolutely bring in some additional ones from neighboring communities that we're operating within. It depends on the event and how many the city would welcome us having within there. Certainly through adjusting some of our parking locations, as well as how we do our operations, meaning where we put the scooters, we can generally get by with just making sure we keep everything recharged prior to one of these special events, but not an issue in terms of bringing in some additional ones if it's justified.
So there's no place where you go to start, and there's no place where you go to end. You just go to where it's parked randomly and park it randomly when you're done. And then you come along and scoop them all up and put them in more central locations, right?
Great question. So the scooters aren't actually deployed randomly. There's quite a bit of science behind where we put them. It's based off of how people use them, because we want people to use them. But honestly, that's the only way we make money, if people use them. So they're always put in a location where they're likely to benefit the community by being available, by having someone use them, and by being rebalanced, meaning moved from where somebody has ended their ride by one of our fleet managers. For Shakopee, you're probably looking at between 2 and 4 fleet managers based off the fleet size that we're anticipating. One of the good things about operating on a dockless model means that there is no infrastructure that has to be installed on the public right-of-way. So nothing that's going to interfere with snow clearing, nothing that's going to take away from an existing parking spot if somebody needs to use an automobile. Makes it very low effort, very light touch.
I have one more question, just one more question. Right now, we have a really difficult time, or the businesses are having a really difficult time getting employees. And have you had that issue in other cities where you have a number of birds out there, but you have no employees to actually manage the?
We've not run into those issues. We actually don't deploy until we have our fleet managers sourced. Reason being is obviously we need to ensure that we have somebody present locally who can handle the day-to-day field operations. Given how lucrative this type of a business can be, I haven't seen any challenges from our fleet manager team in that regard. Certainly for a city the size of Shakopee, I don't think we would have any challenges.
Okay.
We operate in some significantly smaller cities where we have a locally based fleet manager, for context.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Whiting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would these be deployed seasonally or just through the summer months?
For
all year long or seasonally?
For the time being, I think we would be a seasonal business simply because I don't think it would be appropriate to have these in the middle of winter. We are working on some pretty cool technology and some other modalities. Unfortunately, I can't say too much at this point in time, but I think for Shakopee, it's safe to assume it would be a 3-season business for now.
I didn't notice in the contract whether this was exclusive to Bird or whether or not we're leaving it open to other opportunities for other groups that might be coming in. I didn't see it in there anyway. Do you know if that's a part of that contract?
I personally would love for this to be an exclusive arrangement from a business standpoint. I don't think it makes a lot of sense from the city standpoint, and we're more than happy to operate without any exclusivity.
All right, I didn't see it, but I wanted to make sure that that wasn't the case. Mr. Reynolds?
That would require a franchise, and we
Franchise
don't
agreement,
currently have a franchise for mobility scooters.
Right. So if I can keep going a little bit, I do have concerns with traffic. We don't always have the widest roads. Downtown would be great for a parking concern, but we also have the little dining parkettes down there and a lot of traffic. So I'm concerned that it might be too busy, cluttered, accidents. That's a concern, whether, in and out of the park, driving in the grass, things like that, city parks, things like that I'd be concerned about. So I guess I would like to hear from Chief Tate on his thoughts on whether or not this would be safety concerns. Clearly, there's going to be some accidents that go along with it, but what are your thoughts? Chief?
Mayor, members of council, this is something, as Mr. Reynolds said, we've been wrestling for a while. We've had a golf cart ordinance for some time. It's very, very strict. I believe over the weekend and then yesterday and today, I think we've had 4 golf cart permits come into our police department. So the trend, and obviously the gas prices have something to do with that. A lot of people have approached us about side-by-sides and where they can take those in town. So I have a lot of concerns with those. I've seen these in other cities or something similar operate around. I'd be very concerned. My biggest concern is like Canterbury Park, some of our venues, those types of things for a big event like a concert. The last thing I would want was to be somebody on one of these scooters trying to get out of Canterbury Park after Twin Cities Summer Jam. Oh my gosh, that would be tough. But I see both sides of it, but I think we do have to have a big discussion or a broader discussion on, a city that's going to be 50,000 people in a few years. Do we want this? And because we're getting a lot from the golf cart. We've denied a lot of permits for a golf cart when they see how strict the ordinance is, and same with side-by-sides. So it's not going away. I see both sides of it. I have concern with big events and, somebody wanting to get over to watch the fireworks at Canterbury or Valley Fair, those types of things. Maybe a street's not lit up that well and where they're at on the road. Depends how many there are, too.
I'm done, yep. Okay. Counselor Lehman?
Well, Mayor, and that leads into what I was saying earlier. It depends on where you allow them. I mean, in order to get to Canterbury, you're going to have to take, either 101, 16, something like that. And,
high-speed roads.
Yeah, and that's where the problem falls, or a lot of the problem falls. The other question I had is proof of insurance on, I rent one of these out, I do the app, I get on the thing, I take off, and I'm in an accident and I have no proof of insurance. How does that work?
Excellent question. So we actually carry a substantial general liability policy that would be applicable under certain circumstances. We would add the city as an additional insured on that policy. All of our riders are required to agree to a terms and conditions page that includes a release for the municipality to the extent applicable by state law. Our MOU also includes some indemnification language, with the addition of being added as an additional insured on our general liability policy. I think that provides a significant number of protections for the city in that respect.
Well, the person with the Escalade that gets his car scratched by one of these is going to want some proof of insurance so that they can turn it into their insurance company and let the courts fight it out on who's at fault and who's paying for the damages.
Very good question. The same way that a personal bicycle might have insurance through their homeowner's policy or through some other policy, that would likely be the obligation of the rider to have that sort of thing. If you require that every bicycle owner have personal insurance, then likely they would have insurance for coverage for this type of vehicle as well. Again, because state law provides parity between these and bicycles. I do have some additional information that I can provide that might address some of the safety concerns and special event concerns as well. I know it's not on the topic here, but would be happy to share that as well.
I think I've seen other cities. I watch, the big metropolitan areas have the bikes and scooters, and, I was reading just today that the rideshare bike thing in Minneapolis had a record year last year, even during a pandemic. I found that. But coming to a community, possibly here, but I certainly have the concerns as well as council safety. Do you have to be 18? We just talked about insurance, and then if you don't need a driver's license and you don't have a driver's license, and then you get in an accident and whether damage to the scooter or damage to others or damage to city property,
Private property.
huh?
Or private property.
Or, yeah, private property, you would have a full-time staff person here in town if this were to move forward?
We would have multiple fleet managers who are operational partners, checking in on every single scooter multiple times per day. I do want to be clear, those are 1099 individuals. However, that enables us to do the revenue share arrangement, which means that they actually end up earning significantly more. However, the city would have a full-time account manager with Bird who could make any of the adjustments to the geofencing for the special events. If you do have a concert at Canterbury Park, for example, we can digitally shut down the fleet at an earlier hour that day or limit the parameters where they can travel. So if somebody goes outside of where they're supposed to be, scooter will slow down to about 1.5 miles per hour, start beeping and flashing. User gets a notification on their phone telling them to turn around and go back to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's, part of mine is we gotta be around transit, but then I look at where our transit, at least Marshall and Southbridge, I mean, the minute you get outside of that, that's, you know, busy high-speed roads and even all our events like Counselor brought up.
Mayor?
Interesting concept. Michael?
So Mayor and Council, one of the reasons why they approached this is we have a pretty extensive trail system. So these are these are no different than a bicycle under Minnesota state statute, so they can ride on our trails. So if you leave Marshall Road Station, you could go over the bridge on the trail, or the new bridge is under construction, and ride on trails. You can ride on a trail on Eagle Creek. And there's one of the things that when we met with them, you know, people that want to go grocery shopping and pick up a few things, and they live in an apartment building and they don't have a car or don't want to drive a car, this is an easy way, for instance, to get over to Hy-Vee and get back. When they drop the scooter, they get notified, they come and pick it up and put it back in the system.
Is there a basket on this thing to put your groceries in, or are you trying to drive one-handed and holding your bag in the other hand?
There is no basket on these. We do have baskets on our electric bicycles. However, if somebody has a backpack, certainly it would make for a very comfortable ride with groceries.
So we've seen these in other cities with people, they basically have a backpack and put all their stuff in it.
Okay. Other questions? Steve?
Mayor, when we sat down and looked at this system with them, another part about the safety is we would geofence like Eagle Creek Boulevard, County Road 101, out of the system where they wouldn't operate on those roads. So, you know, that safety part, they'd be allowed to operate on the trail along Eagle Creek Boulevard, not on the sidewalk, but on the trail only. Otherwise, they won't function. They won't go. So, you know, on the safety end, that geofencing is pretty important.
Okay. Other questions?
But if I heard right, that would require a full-time staff on our behalf to work with that company to make that happen?
Michael?
No full-time staff would be required on the city side. We take over all of that effort. We keep this as low effort for the city as possible.
Okay. If there's no other questions for Michael and Bird Scooters, we can kind of try to build some sort of consensus of how we want to move forward here as a council. Mr. Reynolds, did you have any more comments?
No, sir.
Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, my tact at this point is to gather more information before I take a position one way or the other.
I might agree. I'd like to see us move forward with a MOU for a trial period, but I certainly want to see more input from our police department, our public works, and how, you know, some of these questions that we had, you've done a very good job answering them, but I think we always try to think of the one-offs and then impacts, right? We're a thriving community, and I get that, but then as policy and procedure folks here on this board, we look at impacts, and that's what we have some of our concerns with.
Absolutely. Completely understand, Mr. Mayor. And we're happy to work with all administrative staff to ensure that we get all of the questions addressed.
Yeah,
Councilor Whiting?
Thank you. I'd like to see look at that picture, the map of what we're proposing on what roads would be in, what roads would be out. Is it feasible to get from point A to point B now that we've excluded all this?
Right.
And the trail system is great, and that does help, I think, to get you to most places. But I'd kind of like to see that first and understand whether or not it's doable, and then what kind of impact, how many we'd have in the downtown area, because I think it's going to be an issue downtown. I have a concern with that.
I can't imagine getting in and out of Cub on, up here either.
Right, just some concerns, so I think maybe just to get some more thoughts put together on it from my point of view.
Jim?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, perhaps a suggestion is if there's some effort and want to go forward with this, we could probably do it on two tracks. We could probably go forward and start working on an MOU. There's a lot of models out there. We're not starting from scratch. We could address issues, and in the meantime, we get more information from Bird Scooters. And this doesn't have to be an end date. I mean, if we can draft it so in a way if something goes wrong, it's a license. We can pull it right away. So it's not like it has to be a certain sunset. There are ways to draft it that allow you to revoke it basically immediately.
Right.
I'm on the reservation side at this point instead. I'm with Counselor Whiting. I'd like to do our little homework up front instead of, I'd like to have the information ahead of time.
No, I know. I think that, I do think that we've talked about it here, the applicant or Bird Scooter, Michael's here. We're addressing a lot of issues here. Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and members of council, if I can make a suggestion, what we can do is that we can start working on some of the questions you've already had in conjunction with Bird. We can also, if you could, the next couple of weeks, think of things that you might be concerned with, some areas you might be concerned with in the city. We can certainly get with them in regards to our trail system and see what might be appropriate, what might not be appropriate. And then we can bring it back for, a little more in-depth workshop. This is just kind of the beginning of the conversation.
Okay. Does that sound like a plan for our council?
Yep.
Doesn't sound like you're gonna get a real quick resolution on this, but we're gonna be pretty thorough on this as we perhaps dip our toe into this new upcoming field here. Michael, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, city staff. Appreciate you having me this evening.
Excellent. All right. Let's move forward here to 8C2, the EAW for Canterbury Park Eastern Development Project. Michael will present.
Here we go. Thank you.
Oh.
Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the EAW for Canterbury. We've been working on this for about a year. There's a team of about a dozen people here tonight to answer any specific questions that you might have. But I thought I would go through the highlights here. The document's 700 and some odd pages. So it's a 62.75 acre parcel of land in the northeast quadrant of Canterbury Park. It's owned by Canterbury and the Shakopee EDA. The proposal is for a 19,000 seat amphitheater with approximately 11,000 fixed seats, 8,000 approximate lounge seating. It's being developed by Swervo Development. They developed and operate the Armory in downtown Minneapolis, and they're in the process right now of redeveloping the Uptown Theater in Minneapolis. So this is the concept layout. So Canterbury Barns are down on that lower right-hand corner. The first phase of this will require demolition of between 8 and 9 barns this fall so that we can get some of those main roadways in, and then over the next year, the remainder of the barns that are in the lower right-hand corner would be demolished. In that area, we bring back to you for future development. The amphitheater is located up in that northern quadrant surrounded by parking and circulation. So the project infrastructure, Canterbury and the amphitheater will coordinate their events. So for instance, a weekend Canterbury live racing starts at 1 p.m. and ends at 5 p.m. Evening racing post time is 5 p.m. and there are specific blackout dates in the agreement between Canterbury and Swervo. For instance, July 3rd is a historic Canterbury fireworks, so they would not be having any events that night. Canterbury weekend events are largely during the day, as I said. There's adequate sewer capacity in the area for the amphitheater and future development around it. Stormwater management, they're proposing to use basins and some other alternative technology. Traffic management, one of the big components of this will be the development of an event management plan for both Canterbury and amphitheater events. And then from a noise mitigation standpoint, the project has a substantial roof and a specific special sound system design. So here we've identified all the sewer capacity that's available in the area. The consultants working with the city engineer have come up with a way to not only serve this facility but future development on Canterbury using both a existing sewer line that runs through Canterbury and some of our surrounding sewer capacity. One of the big discussion topics for the past year has been parking. So the amphitheater will use ticketing that also includes a parking pass and will reference a specific lot. They had a parking consultant on board as part of this project. They run major NFL arenas and stadiums and other arenas in the country. So there's ticketing technology that allows cars to be scanned. If you're not in the right lot, for instance, they have a way to get you out of the traffic so they can keep cars flowing. There'll be new digital signage on roads and potentially on the highway, and then routes to the parking will be provided via app and signage. So one of the things they're looking at is Waze and Google Maps, that when you buy your ticket to the event, including your parking pass, you would get a link that would direct you to the proper route based on traffic, either through Google Maps or Waze. So here is kind of the parking plan. The smaller events can be handled kind of in that number 1 area. The number 2 area are kind of the mid-range, and they can use that second lot. They have an agreement with Canterbury to use that overflow lot, which is shown as number 2 on here. Number 3 kicks in some additional lots, and number 4 is that larger lot at Canterbury. The grayed out lots you see here are the lots necessary for Canterbury to run their weeknight live racing. That's what their parking demand was calculated at. Canterbury also has a temporary overflow parking lot you can see kind of in the yellow there. If we can get this technology to work. Maybe not. Worked earlier. So this is a blurred out vision of actually a good video that Mr. Lilhog put together of our new signage that comes off the highway that actually will have digital displays of what lane you need to be in for both parking and the amphitheater in Canterbury.
So that'll say like this lane is lot A, this
Yep.
lane is lot B?
Just, it's very similar to what you go to the airport and it says if you're going to Terminal 1 and here are the airlines, these signs will have that same capacity. Other thing is the amphitheater will also use rideshare services, and talking about geofencing, they will be geofenced to a specific lot at the amphitheater in the southern end, so Lyft and Uber, which on some events could be as high as 20 or 25% people taking rideshare. So working with SRF, this is kind of a pre-event mitigation strategies and proposed routing. So one of the things we want, for instance, are when the rideshare people come off, we wouldn't want them to get in kind of the big traffic loop around the amphitheater. They'd actually make a left and then come up the back way. Same is true for the buses. They would all be coming in this back way into this orange parking lot area so that they stay out of the stacking distances going into either this traffic control officer here. We're working with the county to hopefully make that a signal someday that goes to lot 2, and then we have dual lefts coming into the upper lot on the northern side of the amphitheater. And then there would be probably For the larger events, this street would be closed and would have just one lane, so for people that get kind of lost, they could get redirected back to these other lots. We've gotten a really good discussion and potential partnership with both MVTA and Southwest Transit, so those outer lots would be served by MVTA, so kind of a park and ride. So when you buy your ticket, that would be one of the options, or it'd be, if it's a big event, it would be probably one of the only options is you can't park at the facility because it would be sold out, so you'd be forced to go park at one of the outlying lots. Southwest Transit conceptually agreed to use their Eden Prairie garage and their garage in Chanhassen. They've estimated on the bigger events they'd be running as many as 8 buses. So those buses would shuttle people over here, and then they would stay here through the event so they'd be able to get people out of here quickly. So to give you an idea, they are, Southwest Transit and Minnesota Valley Transit Authority are the 2 largest providers of busing for the state fair, so they're very used to running these big events. They have a whole staff that we've been working with that knows how to do this. So, excuse me, this will give you a good idea of the different parking areas. So Marshall Road has 442 spaces, Eagle Creek 563, and then Southbridge 513. Those would be the lots that those MVTA buses would be running from. And then they would come up and through the back way, go into that parking lot to drop off for the amphitheater. And then you can see Canterbury's lots A through C, depending on the size of the event, have another 3,150 spaces. The amphitheater itself has 3,500 spaces. So I think we have a pretty good handle here on the parking. Noise was probably the biggest issue. We did get a letter from the city of Eden Prairie based on the Twin City Summer Jams and where that was placed. They got a lot of sound, particularly this past summer. This facility faces largely into the industrial area. The sound is diffused by the roof and the lawn seating, and it would have a state-of-the-art sound system. Here is the yellow is actual background noise every day just from traffic. So you can see the background around Canterbury is 50, 55 decibels. You can see on a major event, the way the amphitheater is positioned, it actually tapers off to 50 decibels just before the highway.
On this one, on that one slide?
Yep.
The yellow, the background is just normal background noise on any given day, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
There's actually a fair amount of traffic noise out there.
That's equivalent to a Honda generator.
So this is just to give you an idea of the size and kind of scale of the amphitheater. There's lots of different levels, which are shown, I think, a little bit better in this. So you can see it's about 20 plus feet into the ground. And then you can see the tall roof in the back. We're about 50 feet out of the ground. So there's a lot of space kind of underneath. One of the things that was discussed early on by the developer is there a way to kind of utilize that underspace for pre-functions, or if there's a storm, people that are sitting in the lawn areas would be able to go under for cover.
It's a retractable roof, as you said?
No, it's a fixed roof. Nice try, Mayor.
All right.
Happy to answer questions. We've got the entire team sitting here.
Questions on of staff or the findings of the EAW? Counselor Lehman?
Couple of questions, Mayor. I think I counted about 10,000 parking spots on all the various lots that you pointed out. And the event holds 19,000, so you've got 50% parking to participation.
Mayor and Council, and that's pretty high. I mean, most, I think, it's over 2 persons per car is what the average is. I think the other thing you're not calculating is we have the buses to be able to bring people in, and then rideshare is the growing thing that we all didn't know even existed a few years ago. So I was just at an event in downtown Minneapolis, and I would probably say more than half the people, there were rideshare cars lined up. So one of the concerns that SRF pointed out when we were talking rideshare was how do we make that work? So you'll see in this orange color here, this is where you go for your rideshare. So it's always in one location. I think Canterbury learned through Twin Cities Summer Jam, working with the police department, that rideshare people will go wherever they can. So you really need to geofence it. So basically, that lot is where all the rideshare cars would have to go for drop-off and pickup.
Did you say that was 20% estimate of the?
It's, depends on the event. It could be much lower, it could be much higher.
Okay, then, Mayor, my next question. When Canterbury had its comprehensive plan amendment, the Met Council said we needed to do a TAS transportation analysis. And we did that. But that didn't take into consideration this was proposed. So how do we incorporate this use into that transportation analysis?
So Mayor and Council, there's two pieces of the transportation piece. There will be a traffic management plan for both Canterbury and the amphitheater. But as far as the TAS goes, we have our experts here from SRF, but I think the correspondence back from the Met Council is this doesn't really have that big of an impact. It's 40 to 60 dates a year, so when you divide that out, 365 days. While there are some peak traffic periods, it's not like this is a major employment center where we're gonna have people coming and going every day.
No, you're gonna have 38,000 trips. 19 coming and 19 going.
They're not all gonna drive.
Mayor and Council, no, you're gonna have, I think you calculated it's 10,000, so maybe you're gonna have 8,000 or 9,000 trips each
Yep.
way. But they're off-peak, so they're on the weekends, or concerts typically start 7 or 8 o'clock at night, so it's a different traffic model. And I think if you read the Met Council letter, it said they did not anticipate any changes to the TAS for this area.
Okay.
Other questions of staff?
I don't have any questions. You know, I think the biggest comments that I've heard are the concerns about the noise. And I think that's really, you know, I think it's addressed in this presentation and in the EAW. I did have an opportunity to read the EAW, and I know that this has been presented also to the Planning Commission, and they have also provided their comments. And no, I don't have any other questions.
Jim?
Ms. Mayor, you probably know this, but just to be sure, your action tonight has nothing to do with approving anything for this. It's simply saying that the environmental review process has been fully completed and there's no need for any further additional. So that's, I just wanted to make that clear, that that's what the action is
Yep,
tonight.
you will be seeing, as the city attorney pointed out, a PUD amendment, May, June timeframe. So that will actually approve a project. And then city engineer and our consultants will be working over the next several months on the traffic management plan. But I think, as the city attorney points out, this has been circulated, I think, to every agency for comment. Those comments, I think, have been addressed. This is just the environmental impacts, not the construction or anything like that.
Okay. Counselor Whiting?
Oh, well, with that said, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution R 2022-065, making a negative declaration of need for an environmental impact statement for Canterbury Eastern Development.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. I guess my comments on the EAW that I read, you know, like Michael said, 40 to 60 events a year, but of that, 12 to 14 would be major. So with a seating of 19,000, I don't anticipate that being full all the time. The base of seating is actually 11,000. I think the critical components are traffic management, in and out, and the noise. And now, if the noise is generally okay, but it, maybe with that roof now added, that'll help the sound. But I'm most interested in the traffic management. And you showed a roadway map. There's no real cross-site driving through Canterbury. I can't go from 12th Avenue all the way to the north without going around the perimeter, right?
Mayor and Council, the setup here was that if Canterbury had to use their parking for their events, they basically have the way in off of Shenandoah. If you look at all these lines, all the rest are feeding for those major events into either the outlying lots at Canterbury or the lot around the amphitheater or the lots coming in. Those are the buses and rideshare.
Right, so the way I view this is the north side of the amphitheater would be, that traffic would be coming in and leaving to the north, either out Shenandoah or north on 83 to 101. The other lots on the south side would be going out 12th and out the lower side of 83 and getting on 169 or dispersing along Eagle Creek, is that correct?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I think one of the big things that I think we have at least conceptual county agreement on is that signal up at Shenandoah by Amazon.
Critical.
Which I think you'll notice the blue lines kind of go around all that area to that signal. We think that's a critical piece and it's included.
Well, I know it's funny, I'm a real advocate of that because I know it was discussed when Amazon was first put in place and the street improvements, and I think it's vitally critical now for that turn signal for safety on 101 for people turning, so.
Mayor, if I could add, please.
Steve?
Just to be clear, so on this exhibit, Lot 1, we expect a lot of traffic to come from the south, right?
Coming from the south?
Coming from both the north and the south. So one of the main strategies is the DMS sign that Michael had shown that was blurry, is to get them, if you come off the interchange at 169, rather than turn on 12th Avenue, which historically people want to do and have done, that DMS sign is going to tell them, go north. There's going to be 2 lanes that go north. Well, it'll be pointing down to the lanes.
Right.
Go north to get them to the new unbridled intersection. Okay. There's a dual left turn lane at unbridled intersection, which is on the north side of Lot 1 there. So that is going to be a big movement, and we know that. But part of the overall management system will be trying to get more users to come from the north. And that will be part of the event management plan and strategy, is to have a better DMS system to encourage and travelers, if you're coming south out of Bloomington, use the 101 turn. Right now it's not very effective. The advanced DMS sign is so far north of the bridge. I don't know if they don't want to use it. They know to go 169 and they don't want to get off on County Road 101. So we need to be more proactive. We probably need an additional sign to say, yep, you need to turn on 101. We want you to use that north access. But I wanted to make sure that we have a big investment in that DMS sign and everything, that there will be traffic going up County Road 83 to the unbridled intersection. So I wanted to make sure that's clear.
I agree. And then after an event is over, we want, if they're going to park up on that side, the north side, when they come out of unbridled, we really want to try to focus them to the north, don't we?
Again, both.
Right.
It would be both to the south. We actually have a dual right turn lane coming out of there to go south. So the south movement will be heavy. We have a kind of constricted point if you go north to get into that 101 turn lane right in the railroad track, right at the railroad tracks. It's tough to funnel all the traffic in there, so that's kind of a pinch point. So we have to use both north and south.
Okay. Has there been any consideration by the county doing 83 of putting in a light over there on unbridled in 83?
So Mayor and council members, part of the current project is we are putting a traffic signal at unbridled in 83. That is included in the current project.
Okay.
I think, Mayor and Council, I think the ones that are not included that we've talked with them is the signal that's kind of on G on this map.
Right.
And then we've had some discussions and no consensus that we need to figure out a good way to control traffic, that left-hand turn going into lot number 2.
Other questions? Other comments? Otherwise, I believe I have a motion and a second on the table. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you all very much. Let's move ahead then to 8C3, Canterbury Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Thank you all very much. Michael.
Mayor and council, so this is a Canterbury Comprehensive Plan Amendment. This is basically a technical fix to something that the Met Council pointed out. So if you all remember, Unbridled is a new road, and there were some other parcels in here. When the comprehensive plan was done now 4 years ago, none of this was here. And so there are 3 parcels, approximately 6.82 acres, including the Souls Company and the retention ponds that currently are guided wrong. And so they asked that currently they're guided for mixed employment, and the Met Council's asked administratively that if you all would approve this, they will approve this also administratively to get them in the Canterbury Entertainment District, because now with Unbridled on this side, it's all in the Entertainment District zone. So the findings are basically that the parcels should have been guided as part of the Entertainment District consistent with the adjacent Canterbury complex. So this amendment remedies that error. The city expanded the redevelopment area to include these properties since the comprehensive plan was adopted, and that the comprehensive plan for the subject properties requires an amendment to future land use designations to allow the proposed amphitheater to go forward. If I get this to work, Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval. Staff recommends the approval of Resolution R 2022-056, a resolution for a comprehensive plan amendment to figure 4.12, planned use in the 2040 comprehensive plan.
All right. Questions of staff? Councilor Lehman.
The land use that was there prior to the city expanding this district and buying these properties was mixed employment.
So, Mayor and Council, so one of the pieces has since been demolished and is now a retention pond, which was the outboard marine location. One of them was a parcel that was owned by Sanmar, which the city acquired and has since sold back this tiny little piece up here. So that land use will remain with that mixed employment. And the last piece is Souls, the developer of the amphitheater, is working with them on relocation right now.
So, just to follow up on Councilor Lehman's question, so this includes the crane company, the cap agency, and the vacant parcel?
Mayor and Council, no. This includes Souls Crane, the little sliver that was left over from Unbridled, and the retention pond, because that retention pond will be used by County Highway 83 and then some of the internal roads. The city engineer has been working tirelessly with all of those engineers you saw sitting here to get all of our stormwater into that pond.
Right. I stand corrected, thank you. Other questions of staff? Other questions of staff? Yes.
Mayor and council, just a reminder, this does require 4 affirmative votes to pass tonight.
4/5 of?
The entire council.
Of the entire, not just present. All right.
And even if it was 4/5 of the present, 3 out of 4 wouldn't hit that. So 3 out of 4 would only be 75%.
So Matt, you want to make a motion?
No, I want to understand exactly where this property is first. Let's see here.
So it's 3 parcels, the remnant from the road that we acquired. So this piece up here will remain in that employment district because it's with Sanmar. It's with Sanmar.
Okay.
This little piece here, which is a remnant left over when we had to build the road, and then here's the retention pond that bleeds into that little piece, and then Souls Crane site.
So where's the Twin Cities outboard at?
It was, Twin Cities outboard used to be this parcel right here where the cursor is. It's been demolished and now it's a pond.
That was the lowest area,
And what's this here?
cap agency.
Cap agency, that building was properly guided. That was already guided for entertainment district.
And that's already in, and then the property on the east side, the green is a vacant lot, and that's already in.
Yep. So the only properties we're
That way
talking
is
about are
north?
outlined in
Yep.
red.
This is a vacant, that's a cap.
Yep. All right, so, kind of curious to hear what Counselor Contreras has to say, so
She'd go for it. I think she'd go.
I'll make a motion to table and to the next meeting.
Second.
I have a motion to table and a second, and I guess then there would be no further discussion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. 8C4, Powers Planned Unit Development Amendment. Michael will present one. Welcome back.
So this is amendment of the plan unit development number 2 for Powers PUD for the Arizona Apartments second phase. We talked a little bit about this earlier. So this aerial shows phase 1, which is actually wrapping up construction and, should open in June. Phase 2 is what we're talking about tonight. They've already constructed in this PUD the VA clinic, and as part of this, the developer will be completing the construction of the dog park. So here's the basic layout. It's a horseshoe building, parking in between. This butts right up against the building that was just completed. They will be adding a swimming pool down in this corner right here, which will be shared by both of the properties. So the way it's being set up is tenants in the current building will be able to use the pool, and tenants in the new building will be able to use the roof deck, which is in the first phase. So it's 112 units, 95 surface parking spaces, 110 garage spaces. And here's your site plan to give you a better idea. So extensive landscaping along Marystown and some additional trees required in the parking lot. Here's the first floor plan. Also includes a fitness and community room on the first floor. One of the things that you'll see in a second, so here's the layout of the two buildings. So you can see the swimming pool dead center there. The dog park is off to the right of the screen. So this building, excuse me, this building is only 3 stories tall. The current building that was just built is 4. That was done on purpose. The developer really wanted those upper units to be able to see over this building. There's some pretty spectacular views to the north. So these are some first phase, second phase, side by side. So the materials and trim and colors will be the same as the first phase. You can see here the swimming pool up in this corner. And again, I said this section is only 3 stories tall. And again, here's a picture. This is the existing, this is that kind of rooftop deck that'll be able to be used by both buildings. And then here's the swimming pool. And there's a elevation. The Planning Commission noted that it's a lot smaller in appearance than the first phase. And they did approve this 7-0.
All right, questions of staff? Counselor Lehman?
If you take both buildings and the acreage and take out the VA clinic, what's the total density?
Don't have that off the top of my head, council member. We wouldn't include the acreage for the VA, but the first building, I believe, was 26. This is going to be less because it's only 3 stories. So I can't give you an answer off the top of my
Well,
head.
this says 112 and 138, so 250 on how many acres?
I will have to get that calculated for you. We are below our density requirement with this this project.
Counselor Brennan?
Is there a sidewalk or trail along the Lusitano Street? And is there an exit that goes onto the trail and a crosswalk that goes over to the dog park?
We haven't worked with engineering yet, mayor and council, on where a crosswalk should go, if there should be one. There is parking allowed on this street. The thought is people for the dog park will park up here. They can also access either of these two parking lots. That was part of the PUD agreement.
And the dog park, the land has been dedicated, and then who pays for the build-out?
Mayor and council, the land was dedicated to the city in the first phase.
Yep.
As part of the park dedication for the first phase and the second phase, there will be enough funds to pay for the build-out.
The first phase funds the land, the second phase funds the...
Construction.
Perfect.
And the developer, as part of their, they're gonna build it, and then we'll give them credit back for the park
I
dedication.
represent the Cat Association here in town, and I appreciate the effort on the dogs, but we're looking for...
You're like a cat park.
Counselor Brennan?
Is there a sign for the building, and where would it be located?
I don't believe in this PUD they have a sign yet. That'll be more of a building code when it comes through the sign ordinance.
Okay.
But knowing Mr. O'Brien, I'm sure there'll be a sign somewhere.
Yep.
Counselor Whiting?
Well, in the build-out of that dog park, we'll be seeing that at a future date, so we can kind of look at the separation from the schools and that kind of thing.
Mayor and council, you've looked at the dog park concept plan. Basically, there's a, I'm gonna say 5-foot chain link fence around it. And actually, that land was owned by the school district and sold for the purpose of the dog park because they wanted to keep the dogs on this side of the property and not on their property.
Sure. Thank you.
People are walking their dogs over there now. And the associated issues with that.
I bet.
And this was at the Planning Commission just a week ago?
Yes, sir.
I was listening to the applicant, and he was talking, I guess I was trying to find it, the traffic ADTs for this was less than the previously proposed medical building, or it wasn't even proposed, but it was identified. Also, I have an odd question in regard to Phase 1, because I've been by this building probably a dozen times. I thought there was going to be a big retaining wall on the southwest along 17th and then traveling north on Marystown. And I apologize if I missed that. I don't see it being integrated.
Mayor and council, there are retaining walls. Some of them you can't see yet because we haven't finished the final grade. There is on this plan a pretty significant retaining wall around the swimming pool in this area here. And that retaining wall on Phase 1 has got to be close to being done because we had a whole discussion on whether it needed a railing or not, so.
Any other questions of
it's there.
staff? Any other questions of staff? If not,
Did we figure out what the density is?
Mayor and council, no, I don't have that at the top of my fingertips.
Counselor Brennan?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number that's not 0, that's 02022-12, 012. Approving the amendment of the planned unit development district number 2.
Is that stated correctly, 0 or O? I'll second that.
Okay.
And Mayor and council, we will get that density out too.
That's a good eye.
Yeah.
Good eye.
It is an O,
Yeah.
not a 0. That is awesome. I have a motion and a second for this amendment to the planned unit development. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1. Thank you very much. All right. We're moving ahead to 8C5 zoning text amendment. to section 151.007, adding industrial fuel stations as a conditional use in the heavy industrial zone. And Michael will present.
So Mayor and Council, this is an amendment to the table that was passed about 18 months ago. CT Realty's attorneys approached the city. They've done these fueling facilities throughout the country, and typically they don't like them. Currently, they would have to be in a B1 or community commercial neighborhood district. They didn't feel this was an appropriate district to have a kind of heavy-duty fueling station. So the applicant is requesting to add fuel stations industrial as a conditional use into the I-2 heavy industrial zone. The applicant intends to propose a compressed natural fuel gas station for delivery vehicles. Excuse me, a subsequent conditional use permit will be required if the text amendment's approved. I did have staff look at what these kind of look like, because that was one of the questions during the Planning Commission. So typically, they operate in two functions. They have gas, similar to the way you would fill up your gas tank in a car. So it's highly compressed in tanks you can see in the back here. You pull up, you basically fill it just like you would a car. So this is a much larger one. But these are considered quick fill. This would allow that and part of the site. The other proposed use is what they call sample time fill area. So that's where you drive your truck. This is used a lot, particularly in Minnesota, on garbage trucks. Most of the fleets are compressed natural gas. The way they're filled is at night. They pull in, they attach to these hoses, and it's much more fuel efficient to have them fuel up overnight than using compressed natural gas. So
that's a lower pressure system or something?
Yep. Somehow it's very expensive to compress it and then put it back on the truck versus let it fill up over time. Staff and Planning Commission recommend City Council approval of the text amendment. Time fill operation shall be limited to a single user or business in a secured area, access controlled. So in other words, that overnight would have to be behind a secure area with a fence so they're not tampered with. Fast fill operation should be limited to commercial fleet fueling of commercial vehicles. Site lighting must be installed pursuant to the city code. Station equipment must be monitored at all times. Such monitoring may occur off-site if the monitoring program is approved by the zoning administrator and the fire department. So typically in these, they have closed-circuit television covering it 24 hours a day with an off-premise monitoring station. The station must incorporate fire detection monitoring systems with automatic shutoffs. The fueling station infrastructure must be screened from view. And so here's landscaping and screening shall be designed and installed in accordance with the city code. Gasoline and diesel fuel will not be permitted to be fueled at these locations. They shall not store any vehicles which are unlicensed or inoperable. And then time fill operation shall be performed in a secure area, barbed wire, concertina wire, razor wire fencing not permitted. And it shall provide stacking for quick fill fueling for at least one vehicle trailer beyond the fueling island. And then they shall not sell, store, or display any vehicles for sale. And then they can have a canopy. The fueling stations have to receive all applicable licenses from both Scott County Environmental Health and also from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And then fuel stations must follow all requirements of Minnesota State Fire Code and the National Fire Protection Association. Fuel station sites and fueling areas must be paved. And then this was kind of a last-minute addition at the Planning Commission. So this company runs these all over the country for major users. And one of the benefits is the people come in the morning and they pick up their truck and they leave, but they leave their vehicle behind. And at night, they fill out a work order that says the wipers are broken or I have a leaking tire. So we added in that a mobile service provider must receive all applicable licenses, and they could do minor repairs to the vehicles like light bulb replacements, oil changes, wiper blade replacements, and other minor routine maintenance in the secure fill area.
Councilor Lehman, you have a question maybe on this one?
Yeah, two of them. One is the DOT requirement when you start up in the morning is to pre-trip your vehicle, and if there's a light bulb out, you can't move it until it's replaced. So you run into the pre-tripping requirement of the federal government in their DOT pre-trip. Second question is, I didn't see anything in here that doesn't restrict electric charging stations from the compressed natural gas.
So Mayor and Council, this is, the applicant talked about that, I think, at the Planning Commission, so they've talked to Spuck. Down the road, if the electric capacity, electric vehicles become more common than the current CNG vehicles they're using, there is adequate power capacity in this area, and they would convert this partially or all to electric.
Well, maybe I'm not understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I don't see anything in here that restricts the electric charging to be used on a site that's handling compressed natural gas. The two don't mix very well, is the point I'm making. So if you're gonna have electric charging on this same site, you're gonna have to have it in a certain way that it's far enough away from the compressed natural gas that one don't explode the other.
That's why we put in the condition, Mayor and Council, that has to meet all the fire codes and state of Minnesota codes. The other interesting twist to this is that they're proposing to use recycled or renewable compressed natural gas at this site. It's a new thing in this country. You know, in the garbage waste hauling places, they used to burn that off.
Methane.
They're now taking that methane, cleaning it on site, and putting it into the gas system. So there is a local landfill that has talked to them about putting in a recycling facility and pumping that gas through the line that's in this area to also serve this. So it's pretty bleeding edge.
Other questions? Councilor Brennan?
Do we have any concerns about another fueling station coming in and the location of that? And could they be located near each other, or do they have to have a space between each other?
Mayor and Council, I don't think, I mean, it's a conditional use, so we would look at that as one of the concerns from the fire department. This is not as of right, but there are very specific users for these fleets, so it's, you know, the big package delivery companies, box truck companies, or garbage truck companies. Those are the big users right now in the United States. So these tend to be used by one specific user. I don't think they would locate another one right near this, and the demand has to be pretty high to be able to do the capital outlay to build one of these, so they have to have a guaranteed user that's going to sign a contract for them.
Okay.
So that was asked at the Planning Commission. You know, they have a user for this particular site. They won't say who it is, but they have a user.
Okay.
In discussions with the fire department, is any additional equipment or processes or procedures or training needed for this type of facility in our community?
Mayor and Council asked the fire chief about that today, if he had any concerns, and he said, no, you know, regular cars blow up, electric cars blow up, and if this happens, they'll deal with it accordingly. This is a pretty highly regulated industry on the compressed natural gas side. If you notice, there's a whole list of agencies that have to sign off on it, so compressed natural gas is highly regulated.
I guess my questions are, this is, it's interesting now, I, in the last week, read a lot about compressed gas stations. Some are more in a retail environment, so I guess for big trucks like this, I think the I-2 zone is perfect. I like that it's a conditional use, permitted, or needs a conditional use for this. I also like that it's for fleet, so there'd be no retail aspect, right?
Correct.
And then I had the same concerns about the fire department. Then I wanted to know if there would be they say monitored. Is there gonna be a full-time employee here? It's all by video camera, and then the natural gas is delivered by pipeline, and then are we gonna have a big tank, or is it gonna be mainlined and then compressed and then shot into the trucks?
Mayor and Council, it's delivered two ways here, and this is the best example that we could find. So you can see here, for one, there's a TV camera mounted under the hood here. There'll be probably two pumps like this. It'll be behind kind of the street. We still haven't seen a site plan yet, but that's compressed natural gas, and there'll be some of those white tanks you see in the back. And so that's for fast fueling. If one of the vehicles, someone forgot to hook it up the night before or whatever, they can fill. The other ones are these basically. So there's a line under that concrete basically, and those little tiny pipes you see there are the fueling lines for the natural gas.
I watched the planning commission on this, and they did a great job. They were talking about this overnight aspect. So if I'm part of the fleet, and then I drop my truck off, and I go to a hotel and stay overnight, and then come back, I didn't get that overnight and where I would go.
Mayor and council, the overnight part is you're filling up overnight. These are local trucks, so this is a local delivery fleet. So it's box trucks, vans, and probably some bigger box trucks. They're out doing their routes all day long. They come back here at night. They have a separate parking lot for their employees. The employees drop their truck off, hook it up to the slow fill, and then get in their personal car
home.
and they go home, yeah.
All right,
And it's all card key access.
okay. Counselor Lehman?
Believe it or not, the police department at one point in the early 2000s had experimented with, was it propane or compressed natural gas? Was it propane? So we had something similar to this with propane right across the street.
Well, okay.
Those are fond memories from the chief.
And we don't, there's not really an applicant in this agenda item yet.
Mayor and council, so we already have enough stuff on our plate, so we said, if you really want to do this, you need to submit it. So the applicant is the company who making the change to our code, because we said we don't have the time to do this, and so they paid their own attorneys to basically create this.
Well, I was trying to, actually, I did look up the company that's mentioned, and trying to figure out if they're a real estate investment trust or a compressed natural gas company, so, but this is, the zoning aspect for conditional use is driving this.
Mayor and council, yes, this is not a zoning aspect, this is just allowing them to go into this zone. It's so as a conditional use.
Right, I got it. All right, other questions of staff? Other questions of staff? Counselor Brennan?
No, but I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number O-2022-013, which adds industrial fuel stations as listed conditional use in heavy industrial I-2 zone along with specific conditions.
Counselor Lehman?
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Lehman. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, council.
All right. Moving ahead, 9A. The city bill list is in front of us for our review. Are there any questions, comments on it? Seeing none, then, we would start with our liaison report and administration report on 9B. Counselor Whiting?
This is my off week, nothing to report.
Okay. Counselor Lehman?
Let's see, 169 Corridor Coalition, the county notified the group that they will no longer be supplying administrative support to that group. So the executive group, myself and the chair, and working on putting a plan together on finding an administrative support person. The RTF met, and Mike Breeze from the Regional Training Center is going to retire.
Been there for a long time.
September, August, September timeframe, not in cast in stone. So one of the things we're looking at now is, okay, so if they're gonna put together some kind of a job description for somebody to come in and take over, what would the duties be, and what's the vision of the facility into the future? And I brought up that, while there is some strong points to the site, the downfall has always been the non-membership revenue generation. And granted, COVID over 2 years didn't help that, but it has been a problem ongoing even prior to COVID. So, I remember being a part of that discussion when that facility was starting out. I can't remember who the other council person was at the time, but We had some concerns then. Valid concerns are still there. You know, you have members that are paying dues, and at the very inception of that facility was that this is going to get used by a lot more users and lower the cost for the initial membership. So that's still a top goal on my list for that facility. They did ask for participation from the city of Shakopee. They said it was very important that we participate in that, so I talked to Mr. Reynolds about that, and he's working on that for us to make sure our police and fire and staff and stuff have input into what that vision is, what their concerns are, what the benefits and pros and cons and everything, so. Working on two different things there, both 169 and the RTF. The Scale started their meeting with the Let's Go Fishing. It was a presentation by a nonprofit that talked about how they get people on a pontoon boat and get them out fishing. Guild Crisis and Recovery Center talked about property valuation and the impacts, federal and state redistricting maps, and then Mayor Mars gave a presentation to the group about Shakopee. So that's my liaison report.
Thank you very much. Counselor Brennan?
A spec meeting was last night, and tonight, on our consent agenda, we approved the West End bid, and the spec also looked at that, and it's probably too late to know, but they approved it, so, or they were in consensus with it. The spec was also awarded the Certificate of Excellence and Reliability by the American Public Power Association. I think this was their 5th year that they've been awarded, so congratulations to them. That's all I have.
Counselor Brennan, thank you very much. My presentation very short, as Counselor Lehman brought up. I did present kind of an update at Scale to kind of showcase the city of Shakopee and all it has to offer and what we got going on, and so that was kind of fun, and thank you. Our administration report, Mr. Reynolds.
Nothing from administration this week.
Oh.
When is cleanup day?
Well, cleanup day is actually coming up. It will be at the last Saturday of this particular month.
It's on Saturday.
It's on Saturday.
The 30th.
Last Saturday of the month.
Yep.
At 7 or 7:30?
Works building, right?
7:30.
7:30 at the Public Works Building,
30th, right?
30th.
You can still get trees, right?
You can still get trees. You can go on the website and get trees, and so it's going to be very warm this weekend apparently, and something tells me that people will have lots of stuff that they're going to pile up and drive in for us to take care of. So we're looking forward to having that happen.
Well, great.
Thanks for reminding me.
Always a good time at the Shakopee Cleanup Day, and actually there was an article in the local paper highlighting that other communities do it too, and it's such a great event. The county, the cities, the partnerships, the bridging, DEMCON was mentioned, so yeah, a lot of resources and folks come together to make this happen, at least in our community, and that's, I think, a great thing, so. All right, item number 10. Councilors, is there any other business before this council? And no motions. Other business? Seeing none?
Motion to adjourn to Tuesday, May 3rd at 2022 at 7 o'clock p.m.
I can second
I
that.
have a motion and a second that we're gonna get closer to summer here at our next meeting, May 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye. 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 Those opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned at 9:32.